Hello, I'm Gina Mae Den, artist in residence and ceramic instructor.
I'm Mary Golick, also a ceramics instructor and artist in residence.
I'm Tamika Suma, one of the ceramic studio assistants. Welcome to the Greenbelt Pottery Studio. We're glad you're here. Today, we're going to talk about using the kiln room. We want you to get the most out of your firing experience. And just note, this video is not meant to provide detailed instructions. For that, please see your teachers. They will be glad to help you. Today, our goal is to provide general guidance for submitting and retrieving items from the kiln room. Just like everything else in ceramics, there's an important details and practices that you need to be aware of, and there are some rules you will need to be asked to follow.
Firing service in the kilns is available to current Greenbelt Ceramics Program students who are enrolled in classes or open studio and to artists in residence. You will see that the kiln room is kept locked as a safety precaution. There's a code to unlock the kiln room door. This code is sent via email to current participants at the beginning of each session. Please do not share this code with people who are not registered. The kilns are typically fired on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and they are typically emptied 2 days later. To submit your work for firing, bring it to the kiln room and place it on the proper shelf, either low fire or high fire. The kiln loader will take it from there.
Safety in the kiln room is important. Be cautious around the kilns. They are fired at temperatures exceeding 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. If you lean against a kiln, it will be memorable. So move through the kiln room with care at all times and do not place anything on top of the kilns. Registered participants must be age 16 or older to enter the kiln room. Younger participants and any unregistered children accompanying you in the building may not enter the kiln room ever for their safety. You may submit up to 4 pieces per week total for the bisque and or the glaze firing. If you do not submit ware 1 week, you can't just add that number to the next week. Use it or lose it. The size of your piece matters because kiln space is limited. Pieces should measure no larger than 12 inches in any direction. There is a bowl on the high fire shelf to give an idea of what a standard size is. If you have a larger piece, get permission in advance from Beth, the studio manager, to submit it for firing. You can drop off or pick up wares in the kiln room during the session anytime the building is open, with some exceptions if the kiln is being loaded or unloaded.
The process of loading and unloading the kilns takes a lot of concentration and care. Someone who is loading or unloading a kiln can't necessarily carry on a conversation at the same time. And if they become distracted by you, they could accidentally damage a piece. So, to avoid disturbing the process, please refrain from entering the kiln room at these times unless you have permission from the person loading the kiln or simply picking up ware.
If you have items to drop off or pick up while loading or unloading is taking place, please follow these guidelines. To drop off items while the kilns are being loaded or unloaded, just place them on the outside of the kiln room on a cart with a note specifying high fire or low fire and any other necessary details. If there is space in the kiln loader will include the ware from the cart. Otherwise, ware on the cart will get moved to the kiln room and will be fired in a subsequent firing. To pick up items during the loading or unloading, enter the kiln room carefully and quietly retrieve your ware. Do not interrupt the person loading or unloading.
When you enter the kiln room at other times, we recommend that you prop the kiln room door open. The door handle can sometimes be difficult to open from inside. Finally, when leaving, if no one else is inside, please always shut the door behind you. For the safety of others, especially curious children, Please don't leave the door propped open if you are not in the room. To get the best firing results, first, make sure that you are putting your wares on the correct shelf. Place your items on the shelves labeled either high fire or low fire, depending on where you are in the process. Bone dry wares, wares that are completely dry, should be placed on the low fire shelves. It goes through a first firing and becomes bisqueware. After this, it can be glazed and placed on either low fire shelves or high fire shelves to undergo the final firing. Then you'll have your final piece, which is always exciting.
Let's go over some additional guidelines for success. Incorporating the following best practices into your routines will increase the likelihood that your wares will survive the firing process. Do your best to avoid these 3 things that can cause explosions. 1. Moisture trapped in the clay turns to steam as the heat rises in the kiln and then explodes. 2. Air bubbles in the clay can weaken your ware and cause breakages. 3. Closed forms that have no air hole to release inner air will also likely explode. To help prevent explosions and breakages, you should ensure your piece is completely bone dry before bisque firing. Wedge your clay well to eliminate air bubbles, and pierce any closed forms with a small hole during the making process. Most importantly, submit only bone dry, completely dry greenware for bisque firing. Damp or wet greenware that is submitted will not be fired and will be put on the problem shelf. This will delay your work, so make sure your wares are completely dry when submitting them. Here's a tip. A great way to check for dampness in greenware is to hold it against your cheek or even just in your hands by the base. Bone dry ware should not feel cool. If the greenware appears dry but is still cool to the touch, let it dry further before submitting it for bisque firing. If in doubt, it is better to let it dry out a bit more. Better safe than sorry.
Remember to mark your wares with your name, initials, or other mark. Wares can often look the same, so if your ware is not marked with your name or mark, it may be mistakenly taken by someone else. Items submitted without a name or mark will be placed on the problem shelf. Let's talk about the problem shelf. This is a shelf at the very bottom of the completed glazed ware shelf unit. Items are placed there by staff if there are problems or questions. For example, if you have a glaze on the bottom of your piece, it could be placed there with a note asking you to clean the glaze off the bottom before it can be fired. One of the wonderful things about making ceramics is that you can apply so many different kinds of colorants, underglaze, on-gobe, slips, glazes, and oxides. To avoid any confusion, particularly with low fire items when submitting your work for firing, a best practice is to alert the kiln staff in writing if oxides or decals have been applied to your piece so staff can avoid smudging them or transferring them to other wares after touching them. Please leave a note next to or under your wares if your piece needs special handling or if you use non-studio glaze. You do not need to include all the glaze names and colors in your note. Just indicate if it is a commercial glaze, an oxide, etc. You will find paper and pencils on the shelf for finished glazed wares.
If you have applied a glaze or glaze layers that could possibly run a lot, please place your ware on a cookie, which is a piece of bisque that will catch any glaze that does run off the ware, or better yet, a small piece of kiln shelf that has kiln wash on it. Hots with lids will be fired with the lids off unless there is a note from you saying to fire with the lid on. Be sure there is no glaze near any of the touching parts of the lid and pot to ensure they don't get permanently melted together. If you put low or flat wares on a very high shelf, insert a note that hangs out to alert the kiln loaders. Otherwise, they may not see the piece. Some of us are short. Only clay supplied by our studio may be fired in the kilns unless you have advance permission from the studio manager. This will help prevent serious damage to our kilns. And it's very important when submitting glazeware to always be sure that you have wiped all glaze off the bottom of your ware to avoid having your piece stick to the kiln shelf and be ruined, or rejected and placed on the problem shelf until properly cleaned.
When picking up your low-fired items, remember to wash your hands before touching your bisqueware or anyone else's to ensure you have no lotion, grease, or skin oil on your hands, which could affect your glazing process. Grease, wax, and oils on bisqueware can prevent the glaze from properly adhering to the piece. It's best not to handle other people's pieces at all. However, sometimes you may need to move a piece, to place or remove your piece on a shelf. If you must move wares to make more room, start with clean, dry hands, then cradle, lift, and set back down any piece you must move. Do not pick up or grab anything by the rim or the handles, which can easily break off. Never move any greenware tile pieces on the low-fire shelf. These break very easily. If the tile is bisqueware, it can be moved, but be very careful. If you accidentally break someone else's piece, please take ownership and leave a note of apology with your name under a piece that you damaged.
Space on the kiln room shelves is limited, so please do your part to pick up your fired bisqueware and glazed pieces promptly within 1 week of firing. Store your work on your personal shelf or take it home. Wares will be moved to the hall if not picked up. Items not claimed promptly will be considered abandoned and will be discarded. If you do not like how your ceramic piece turns out, please remove it. Just throw it away, discard of it. Here's a fun fact. Once clay has been fired, it cannot be recycled in the slurry buckets. So, if your piece develops a crack in the firing or is otherwise damaged or unwanted, please discard it in the trash, not the slurry bucket. Remember, during intercession breaks, students may pick up fired work, but should not submit work to be fired. If you have wares that need special permissions or accommodations, please email the studio manager, Beth Findley, ahead of time to discuss the situation. Her email is bfindley@greenbeltmd.gov.
Finally, if you can't find your piece, be sure to check the problem shelf, the lowest shelf on the glazed wares, as items that have had issues will be located there. Also, check the shelving in the halls to make sure your piece was not mistakenly placed with the children's wares. And please, try not to take offense if that happens. We have some very talented youth participants with years of experience, and it can be difficult to distinguish their work from that of adults. If you still can't find your piece, look on the shelves of wares still waiting to be fired. Your piece may not have been fired yet. Your piece could also still be in a kiln, waiting to be unloaded. Thanks for watching our video. We love to see all the beautiful work coming out of the kilns each week. So keep it coming. Keep creating art.
And may the clay be with you.